in their way, they can't stay in balance. So if we start getting stressed or feeling bad about ourselves or starting to feel like life is just too painful to live, and boy, oh boy, I sure wish that I had something else in my life, or I wish I had somebody to love that really loved me, or I'm really tired of working so hard, or boy, I hate my job. Well, the minute you dwell on those thoughts, where are they going to go? They're only going to go into your body. They're going to go straight back into your body, and they're going to settle in a place in your body that's the weakest place. So if it happens to be any of your organs, your bones, that's where those negative thoughts will settle. If you don't learn how to bounce out of them, they grow. Because whatever you think about becomes stronger and more powerful in your life. And so if you don't shift your thoughts and bounce out of there and bring yourself into more of a realization that you're in power of your life, you're in power of who you are, not anybody else, not the doctors, not mom and dad, not anybody else. It's you that has the control and the power of who you are. Then you're going to stay. And all that happens is it gets worse. And sometimes there are people, and I've met them, who've had an epiphany one day, and they realize, I don't want this breast cancer anymore. I don't need this any longer. I'm going to go for what makes me happy. Because they feel they don't have anything to lose anyway, right? So they just go for what makes them happy and get healed. And they go, oh, I've had a miracle. I've gotten healed. Of course, I didn't do it. Something happened, but yes, you did do it. And you did it because you found the joy factor. Because you went to a place that said, well, I have nothing to lose, so I might as well get happy.
I understand that you have a new teaching called the Joy Factor. Do you mind sharing a bit of information about that today?
Yes, I can't wait to share it.
Oh, good.
I've just finished writing a book called The Joy Factor, and I've launched a new teaching on the Joy Factor, and I am so excited about it because it's giving us a new way to take a look at how to align with our true self. It's giving us a new understanding of how to come out of the idea of despair and hopelessness. Because so often what happens in our world is things go wrong and we get into a place of feeling hopelessness. We get into despair with things. Sometimes we get mad and go into rage, but we really haven't got a good way to bounce out of it and bring ourselves into alignment with the truth of who we are. Well, the truth of who we are is that we are joy-filled beings. And we came to this earth to bring joy, to be joy. And any of you that have little ones around you, and those little bouncing Tigger babies, you know that they are filled with joy. And so what happens to these people when they come into the world? They grow up, and they're being taught all the time how to not be joyful, how to hold back, how to go into this world and get prepared to be in the world of not joy. And so we're in a reawakening process. 2012 is really saying, wake up, everybody. Move yourself out of this painful place where you're drowning in hopelessness. I mean, what are we listening to on the television? People losing their jobs, having difficulty with their finances. Good heavens, I don't even want to hear it anymore. It gets to the place where you don't realize that there's even any balance that's going to come. So I decided a while ago that I was going to see if I could find the joy factor for myself. And in finding the joy factor for myself, I started to write my book. And I started remembering stories of my children when they were young. And I start the book off by talking about my brother's little boy and my daughter having dinner in the room and me walking in and finding spaghetti all over their heads and smearing spaghetti everywhere on the walls and all over the floor. And remembering that I wasn't sure whether to yell at them or what to do with them. And instead, You can't help yourself. It was really a very funny sight. And so you just start laughing. And I thought to myself, how many times do we look into our life to find the joy factor? That it doesn't matter what you're talking about or thinking. I don't care how serious things are. There's a little bit of joy in every single solitary thing that you're talking about. And so I developed this little teaching that I'm working on right now. And that is helping people bounce from this place of hopelessness into alignment with the truth of who they really are. So how do we bounce? Well, we bounce by recognizing that I don't feel so good about what that person just said. So now I'm going to bounce into a better feeling thought. And so if somebody disapproves of something I'm saying, I might say, okay, I get your point, and that really kind of made me feel bad, so I just want to go into appreciation of you being honest with me, and I so deeply appreciate how good you are to me, and I love it when you come over and have coffee with me, and you always make me feel so good, and I know that if you have this or that to say to me, that it has to be something very important, so I'm going to listen. And I'm going to bounce myself into feeling good instead of going into, oh dear, what's wrong with me? I don't do that anymore. And I'm bringing this teaching out into the world. You're watching it so that you can begin to look at your own life and say, gosh, where is it that I could be feeling bad about myself? Maybe I'm comparing myself with others. Maybe I don't think I'm good enough. One of the thoughts I had when I was writing my book is, I don't really want to write a book that somebody else has already written. What do I have that I value about myself? Well, I've got a pretty unique story. And so I decided to tell my story. What's the worst that could happen? You'll either laugh and enjoy it or you won't read it. So I am now looking at what I'm doing in bringing the joy factor out all the time in every way.
AlixSandra, you've brought with you a special teaching for the audience today. So thank you so much, and I'll hand this over to you.
Well, this is a further teaching of the joy factor, because what I've discovered in the years that I've been teaching, and that's been many years of teaching, is that whenever you are thinking about joy and happiness, don't you find there's always a niggly little thought that comes up that says, yeah, but what if, kind of thing. So I decided that I would make a teaching out of the yabbits. Now that is spelled Y-A-B-B-I-T. And it is coming from an experience that I've had with many, many people. So I'm going to give you my list of yabbits. First we have Judge Yabbit and his jury of hangmen. So you might recognize the judge in your life and how the jury of hangmen will hang you no matter how hard you try. And next we have the parental yabbit and her controlling family. Now, I don't know about you, but I know that I have experienced my family having everything to say about what I'm going to do and wanting to control my next move. And so sometimes that kind of takes the joy out of some exciting idea that I might have. Oh, and then I've got a good one for you. The nagging bossy yabbit and his entourage of perfectionist thugs. Now, I love that one because when there is someone in your life who nags and nags and nags, like you never do anything right, you don't put the butter away right, or you don't hang the photograph right, it does feel like a thug is after you, doesn't it? So I've tried to make this kind of a joyous, happy thing so that when we look for the joy factor, we're also looking for the happy piece within all of these. Here's a few more. We have our pleaser yabbit and her HOA, Homeowners Association of Conformity. Now this one happened from a true story of a person who is a friend of mine who kept getting sent to the board of HOA people because his roses were too tall. He couldn't figure out what in the world was the problem. Well, they had a rule that the rose bushes or any bushes couldn't be higher than 32 inches. But for the life of him, he couldn't figure out how anybody would know if they were 32 inches. One day he sat at his window and he saw this little old lady with a cane walking around. Her cane was exactly 32 inches. And she was measuring, the true story, she was measuring everybody's bushes. And if they were higher than 32 inches, she felt that it was her duty to report them, and report them she did. So I just thought that was absolutely the cutest thing I ever heard, and that then became a yabbit. Then we have the doubter yabbit and his throng of whiners and complainers. Now, the doubting teaching is a big teaching in the Joy Factor, because on the Joy Factor ruler, the one place that so many of us have a problem with is doubting ourselves. And so in my teaching, what I'm doing now is showing people how to bounce out of the doubt into alignment with themselves. See, so the whole idea is for you to feel your own feelings and think your own thoughts and be your own person, which is what you want. You've wanted it forever. And this is how you do it. You pay attention to the yabbit world and then you bounce. You become a tigger. You just bounce yourself out into a happy feeling. So let's say, for example, the doubter yabbit and his throng of moaners and whiners is saying, well, you know what? This book that you want to write, AlixSandra, somebody else has already written it. And so what do? How do I bounce myself out of that? I go, well, nobody could possibly write my story. I'm a unique individual, and I have a very unique story to tell. And I'll bet there isn't another person out there that has had my experiences, so maybe I'll give it a try. And maybe I'll break through that wall that will not let me go any further than where that yabbit says I can go. And that teaching has served me. So if that teaching serves me, and I find the Joy Factor within my own yabbit world, and I find a way to dismember, disengage, allow the yabbits to remove themselves from my life, then so can you. So that's why I've made it a big part of my teaching these days.
That's really beautiful. Now, the Joy Factor book, is that on the shelves as we speak, or is that yet to come?
No, the Joy Factor book should be out about the middle of December. I'm in the process of working with a publisher, and so it will be ready and it will be on my website, and so you'll be able to see excerpts of it, and I think I'll be publishing some of the parts of the book so that you can download them and read them.
Oh, wonderful. What's been your biggest inspiration?
Oh, you asked that question. What's my biggest inspiration? Life. I'm not kidding. I am so excited about living these days. It's like once I found my Joy Factor, once I recognized that I alone can determine my life and can determine what's going to happen in my life, I can't wait for tomorrow. Like, it's almost evening now, and I know I'm going to go to sleep, and I can't wait to go to sleep so I can wake up in the morning, because I'll tell you what happens to me. True story. My day starts about 4 in the morning, Pacific time, right? And so I get up in the morning, and I always get up with some inspirational, exciting thought, because I've gone to sleep feeling so good about me and feeling so good about who I am that the greater part of me wants to add to it. And so I wake up and I come up with these amazing stories and amazing ideas, and then I can't wait to share them with somebody. And so if you ask me my greatest inspiration, I have to honestly say I'm inspiring myself these days. I hope that's okay, but I want you to inspire yourself.